expand the discourse, and we have a guest joined us to speak further on World Immunization Week for this year. And the theme for 2021 is Vaccines Bring Us Closer. Let's welcome Mr. Peter Hawkins. He's UNICEF country representative in Nigeria. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me.
Good afternoon to you. Now, I'm very sure you're aware that the COVID-19 vaccination has posed a major obstacle to, the regular routine immunization. People no longer observe that. But from your assessment, would you say it's still consistent?
It is. I mean, Nigeria is a very good example, as your report has said, as how it's built up over time to ensure that children are vaccinated, especially during the pandemic. 2017, 2018 and 2019, routine immunization year on year increased significantly. 2020 was a challenging year, but it only reduced by about 6 to 8%. The problem, as Dr. Bassi and Dr. Kofi have outlined in your report, are the children who are not vaccinated, what we call zero vaccinated children, the 3.1 million children. So in 2021, not only is there a strategy to ensure that we continue to vaccinate children with routine immunization, that's every day over the period of the year, but also to target those 3.10 vaccinated children so that we can reduce that significantly.
Now, in view of what is already happening from what you're saying, what is the risk, especially for these children who will miss out on life-saving vaccines, like measles, polio, and the rest of them?
Well, the task is bringing routine immunization brings us closer.
Yes.
It also saves lives. I mean, that is the most important thing. About 800,000 children die a year, under 5 in Nigeria. And we have to reduce that significantly. And one of the best ways and the most effective ways through routine immunization is ensuring that all children are immunized. Secondly, as Nigeria celebrated very successfully the zero wild polio in 2020. That was a significant step that we're moving forward. We are addressing the pandemic as well. And with COVID-19 vaccination coming in, as Dr. Bassi quite rightly said, we need to find the right balance between the training and the application of COVID-19 vaccine and maintaining routine immunization. One of the key elements to that, and I would plead here to all health workers, is the health workers should take the COVID-19 vaccine so that they can continue with a healthy future to routine immunization and not get affected by COVID. If they are vaccinated, they are safe, they are able to continue routine immunization and ensure that the primary healthcare system and structures continue unabated.
And before we jump on the efficacy of the vaccine, let's look at how poorer countries are coping, with the surveillance we've seen so far. Accessibility is a major challenge. What are your thoughts?
No, surveillance in Nigeria is actually very strong because Nigeria has so many different diseases, malaria, Lassa fever, polio, and a lot of the surveillance was built up by WHO and NPCDHA to ensure that polio and other diseases are brought in early. With COVID-19, we were exceptionally challenged by the testing. The testing has been overcome. All 36 states have an element and a capacity to test against COVID-19.
What about accessibility for poorer countries, this COVID-19 vaccines?
That is still a dilemma. And then it's a dilemma, the whole issue of supply and demand is a big issue around COVID-19 vaccines. But Nigeria has been lucky that it has received 3.924 million doses, second highest amongst the 92 middle-income and low-income countries under the COVAX. The COVAX system evolved by Gavi, WHO, CEPI and UNICEF. So that 3.924 million doses, over 1.44 million people have received their single dose. And that is a success given we're only, 2 months into the campaign. Then the challenge is going to be, one, to ensure that all health workers get vaccinated. And again, I plead to all health workers, go and get vaccinated now, quickly, and to ensure that you are healthy going forward. The second challenge is to make sure that people do take their second vaccine. There's enough vaccine for the second round of the vaccine, which will start sometime later this month, sometime later in May, and then it will be able to finish that. And then the third is obviously what you're alluding to, is making sure more vaccine comes in so that we can continue right through 2021 and into 2022 to make sure that 51.4% of the population are fully vaccinated against COVID.
Okay, now you're just talking about the second dose coming in May, and there's still the question of trust. So the first dose, people are, before we started this conversation, you were asking me if I've taken my jab, you know, and a lot of people out there still have this trust issue of if they, we saw that in the report earlier, if they're ready or willing to go take this vaccine, what would you recommend, you know, as part of strategies they can deploy to help people?
I strongly recommend that people do take the vaccine. It's the risk against the vaccine far outweighs the risk of not taking the vaccine. I've taken the vaccine and I will continue to take my second dose. My mother-in-law, all my family, and all my colleagues that are around me, I encourage them to take the vaccine. Many people are taking the vaccine. The risk is 1 in a million, even less. It's far more likely that you get hit by lightning than you would be affected by the vaccine. It's 1 in 500,000 will be hit by lightning, 1 in a million that you'll be affected negatively by this vaccine with thrombosis. We have had no cases of thrombosis in Nigeria, and we're trying to improve the surveillance to ensure that we do capture all the negative effects of the vaccine. So please take the vaccine. It's important that Nigeria is protected. There are things being put in place, so there are enough vaccine for Nigeria to vaccinate 51.4% of the population, or 112 million people, which is an enormous number of people. The health workers are key. Not only do they demonstrate to the rest of the population that that it is safe, but it means they can get on, and especially in this week of Immunization Week, they can get on and continue the life-saving routine immunization for children as well.
Which is very key. And if I heard you correctly, you said the second dose of the COVID-19 vaccine will be in May. Now, for people who have taken the first jab, what happens if you don't take the second one?
The impact of, or the effect of the vaccine will deteriorate over time. Taking the second one may make sure that the efficacy goes to over 90%. So take that second one. It's so important that you do first and second. There are enough vaccines in the country that if you have taken your first one, you can take your second one. So make sure you look on the card when the date is to take your second one, and make sure you take that second one.
Okay, so for people who did not pay attention to the dates, you know, of taking theirs, that's the first jab, is there an issue of delay? Because some persons are, you know, thinking that they are being delayed for the second dose.
There's no delay.
Okay.
Because 50% of the vaccine have been held, doses have been held behind to ensure that people can take the second dose. It is well managed in Nigeria.
Okay, what about supply and availability? What is UNICEF doing in that right, you know, to assist countries like Nigeria?
So UNICEF does a lot of the procurement for COVAX, for the AU and other bodies. So we're day and night trying to negotiate with different manufacturers for different vaccines to ensure that we get enough. The problem now is that there are enough vaccines being produced, but for example, and we've all seen the problems in India. India now are using a lot of the vaccines to ensure that its own population are vaccinated. Immediately the export permits will come, and vaccine will be able to come back to Nigeria. But it's very clear to say that the 3.94 million doses that Nigeria has received, if you've had your first dose, make sure you have your second dose. There is enough vaccine here. It's about the next load of people, especially the over 50s, those that are compromised, that it's important that we get enough vaccine. And the next one will be about 2 million doses, the one after about 2.9 million doses. They will arrive as soon as the market allows us to bring it in, and that should be sometime soon over the next quarter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peter Hawkins. Thank you for your time with us.
Thank you very much.
And keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Okay, he's the UNICEF country representative in Nigeria. And like he said, please go get vaccinated. It's very, very important.